Hello there, good morning and welcome on board another edition of the program The Papers on Canal The English. We are glad to know you out there watching this other edition. In the course of this program, we shall be looking at what the papers say and analyzing the content of the papers in the second segment of this program. We unveil the program with lower message which captions on the Council of Ministers meeting which held yesterday in Yaoundé. Lower message says the head of state Paul Biya, who presided at the cabinet meeting, prescribed efficiency as the watchword for the government action. The story says the head of state told the new and old members to be committed. Le Messager on page 8 says 150 corpses have been abandoned at mortuaries in the city of Douala. The story says family members have been told to remove the corpses as soon as possible. You can read more on page 8 of Le Messager, today's edition. Le Messager on page 4 captions on the health of the former Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Simi Menye Lazam, who is said to be hospitalized at the CNPS hospital. Details on the story says the minister was a victim of a cardiac arrest. Read more of that story on page 4 of Le Messager this morning. La Nouvelle Expression on its banner this morning visits the Yaoundé cabinet meeting saying President Paul Biya, who presided at yesterday's cabinet meeting, was calm as he dished out recommendations to the members of government. Details on the story says the head of state made mention of the incompetence of the outgoing team, but said nothing about the Boko Haram crisis. On page 4 and 5, La Nouvelle Expression captions on what the paper calls the other side of the presence of Americans in Cameroon, focusing on the fight against terrorism and U.S. President Barack Obama's intention to send 300 U.S. soldiers to assist Cameroon in the fight against the Boko Haram sect. Details on the story says the Social Democratic Front Party is not comfortable with the presence of American soldiers in the country. La Nouvelle Expression also visits the National Day for Mourning decreed by the head of state Paul Biya, questioning how over 30 people can die without any traces. You can read more of that story on page 3 of La Nouvelle Expression, today's edition. There will be no scarcity or price hikes for basic commodities during the end-of-year festivities. The announcement was made by Cameroon's Minister of Commerce, Luc Maklua Mbarga Tangana. The story features on page 6 and 7 of La Nouvelle Expression this morning. The government of October 2 will have to make no errors. That's the banner headline of Europlus this morning. The story says the president of the Republic, Paul Biya, who presided at yesterday's cabinet meeting, focused on priority projects. Europlus captions on the recent pilgrimage to Mecca with a focus on recent figures vis-a-vis the number of deaths recorded so far. Read more on page 3 of Europlus this morning. Another paper, Le Premier Heure, captions on what the paper calls crookery at its peak. Documents which incriminate the man being protected by Samuel Eto'o's. That's the banner headline of the paper this morning. The story says the ambulant culprit, Serge Alain Bikit Esome, has been manipulating the press ever since the crookery attempt unveiled his intention to dupe the son of Sassou Nguesso of the sum of 32.5 million francs CFA. You can quench your thirst by reading the story on page 6 and 7 of Le Premier Heure. The paper also visits the Council of Ministers meeting, which held yesterday in Yaoundé, saying 13 days after the cabinet reshufflement, President Paul Biya yesterday presided at the first cabinet meeting. The story says the president and his ministers focused their discussions on the female and male African Cup of Nations to be hosted by Cameroon in 2016 and 2019. You can read more on that story on page 3 of Le Premier Heure, today's edition. That's all we gathered for you this morning. We shall be moving over to the second segment of this program, where we shall be analyzing what the contents of the paper, like I announced at the beginning of the program. We have as guest Mr. Eli Smith. Good morning, Mr. Eli.
Good morning.
You are a regular guest on this program.
It's always a pleasure to be here.
Well, we would like to start by asking you, you've been reading through the papers this morning. What actually caught your attention?
One, there are many subjects that caught my attention, but on the top is the corpses that have been abandoned at the Douala mortuary.
Yes.
I think the number is 150.
Yes.
Which is something revealing how our society has become today. Because how come that a member of your family is dead and you abandon the corpse at the mortuary? Either it is a problem of money, which is not really founded, because we know how things happen here when somebody dies, but it's either you have, or the family member is showing little or no interest in the person who has died.
Yes, Mr. Eli, maybe some of these corpses have not been identified. Maybe they are corpses of victims of road accidents.
Oh yes, it can be that, but if in that case, doesn't mean that if a member of a family has been a victim or has disappeared, have they not gone to the various police stations and hospitals to find out? Because if they had gone to various police stations, because at least Cameroon is still a stable country, if a person has been a victim of a road accident, even if he or she is not identified, his corpse will be recovered, taken to the hospital. So if any family member hasn't, I think it's not a reason. It just shows how our society has become. The values are already corrupt. The foundation is shattered.
And we know the competent authorities are going to take a move if the family members do not respond immediately, like the papers are saying, that the authorities that are calling on the family members to respond immediately and remove the corpses from the Douala mortuaries. Let's look at the other story that caught your attention. We know that the papers today focused on the cabinet meeting that held yesterday in Yaoundé.
Sure,
yes.
Because I think it is an event, because we know that the president of this country seldom holds regular ministerial meeting. If he has done this one immediately after the cabinet shake-off, it shows that he has perhaps changed and he's becoming focused. And I think it is like a wake-up call to all those working with him. I think it is something worth praising, because we have always been saying that he doesn't meet with his ministers. If now he has done what we have been decried, I think it's something to be appreciated, especially that they did focus on, as they claim, the relaunch of the economy, yes, trying to make Cameroon become an emerging economy by 2035, and also on issues like the African Cup of Nations that will be held here in Cameroon, the male and female versions.
Yes, Mr. Eli, did they, according to you, after reading through the papers, did the cabinet meeting focus on the issues of the day?
Well,
because we know that they spoke on the African Cup of Nations.
Yes.
And but some papers are saying that they never touched the Boko Haram crisis.
Great. It is, in fact, that is something which is, I don't know why they never wanted to focus, he never wanted to focus on the Boko Haram crisis, which is a major one, and which also becomes a major story again after the American government decided to deploy 300 American soldiers on Cameroonian soil, yes, which is going to be the first time in Cameroon, because the American soldiers have been in East Africa, they, yes, have been in Central Africa, for example, looking for Joseph Kony in Central African Republic and in the north of Uganda. Yes. So as far as Cameroon is concerned, this is the first time that a foreign military foreign power from the Western Hemisphere has decided to come and look for a base here in Cameroon.
Yes, La Nouvelle Expression says that the President of the Republic actually said that the outgoing team was incompetent.
Yes, normally I think you don't need to be a rocket scientist to understand. If you have been shown the door, it means that either you have overstayed your time, or most likely you have not been able to achieve the targeted objective that was given to you, because most of them have gone, but some of them have been retained, which means that those who have been retained perhaps were the good ones.
Yes, President Paul Biya also said that the ministers, that is the newly appointed ministers, should know that there is no space for errors.
Yes, he has said it, but we want to judge him at the end of the day because there are some ministers who were not competent, who have been retained or redirected to redeployed to other posts of responsibilities. For example, the former minister delegate at defense. Most people know that he was not doing his job as he did. He had to, but he was removed from one post and sent to the other place, to another responsibility. One other thing that I have noted with this cabinet shaker was that we keep on recycling the same group of persons. What would have been good is to inject new blood who are not known to the society, who might really come and change the dynamics of the
So you're not okay with the figures, with the persons that were appointed during the last cabinet shakeup?
I am not okay. I'm not very okay because we keep on having the same group of persons. How come that we still have only the same group of persons coming? And then another thing is that 65 is too much for a country that is undergoing economic crisis. So we think that we have a bloated government. We need to reduce and make it much more efficient and also try to appoint people who come, for example, from the blue, people you don't know them.
Competent individuals.
Competent individuals who are neutral, who are also competent, who come from places that will not be corrupt or are not corrupt, and who will come like new blood to come and change the dynamics of the place.
Do you believe that there can be new blood in Cameroon with the current corruption spirit in the country? Maybe the younger generation is inheriting what they have learned from the old.
It might, no, it's not entirely true. You cannot tell me that out of 20 million Cameroonians, if the figure is actually correct, that everybody is corrupt. There are some Cameroonians who are honest, who can assume the responsibility of the responsibilities in this country. I think that if they are not appointed, it's simply because they are not in the network that will allow them to be where they wanted to be. So not all Cameroonians are corrupt. Saying that is preposterous and is unfair for Cameroon.
Okay, let's look at what the papers also focused on what the stance of the Social Democratic Front Party vis-a-vis the presence of U.S. troops in Cameroon. You know, President Barack Obama announced that the United States of America will be supporting Cameroon in a fight against Boko Haram with 300 troops. 90 of them are already in Yaoundé, like we announced earlier in the program. What do you think about the stand of the SDF party, who are not comfortable with the presence of these troops in Cameroon?
It's very normal. The SDF is the nationalist party. No nationalists will accept, because accepting the presence of U.S. troops in Cameroon shows that we have failed.
Yes.
It shows that we have failed. And then there is a question we have to ask, because the U.S. government had claimed before that they will not support the Nigerian government on the grounds that the Nigerian military was violating human rights. And the question that begs to be asked, and we need an answer, is that how different is the Cameroonian military with that of Nigeria, knowing that we have reports from Amnesty International, we have reports from international crisis groups that indicts the Cameroonian army not to be an army that respects human rights. How come that they have refused to help Nigeria, but they are helping Cameroon? So the SDF is not alone in that suspicion, in trying to refuse and trying to reject the presence of U.S. forces in this country. There's another party called Pew of a certain Serge Espoir Matumba, who really expressed that problem yesterday, reservation that the United States is here not to defend Cameroon as they are pretending, but it is for their own interest.
What do you think can be the interest of the United States in Cameroon?
The interest of the United States in Cameroon, first of all, is to protect the pipeline that conveys oil from southern Chad to the ports of Cameroon at Kribi. Secondly, and then the second aspect will be to oversee the Gulf of Guinea, which is a strategic gulf with a lot of potential in oil. And also there is another problem. Nigeria has a strategic agreement with China, which is not viewed in a very good way in Washington, D.C. I think that's the reason why the United States is here. It is not simply to protect the Cameroonians.
Yes, that is your opinion, and your opinion counts on the program, the papers. There is another school of thought that says that the SDF should know that concerted action is needed in the face of a war.
Sure, it is true. People who are saying it, do they think that the SDF is just a stupid party that just comes and run their mouth amok? No. If the SDF has given their point of view, remember that is the largest intra and extra parliamentary opposition in this country, which is a political party that is on the sideline to govern this country, they too, before coming out with a point of view that they came out, it is certain they have concerted and they have looked at all the positives as well as negative implications of the United States coming to Cameroon, and they decided that as a Cameroonian party, as an African party, accepting a foreign army to come and have a foothold in Cameroon is wrong, because people have been accusing Cameroon that Cameroon wants to become the headquarters of the AFRICOM, that is this decentralized American forces for Africa, which is tantamount to tantamount to a kind of colonialism which is coming from the United States, with no right-thinking African will accept it.
Well, that's your point of view. We want to thank you very much for respecting our rendezvous.
It was a pleasure to be here.
Thanks for your kind attention. That's all we gathered for you today. We are very glad to know you were out there watching the program this morning. We keep another rendezvous for Monday. Thanks for your kind attention.